Greetings. Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, guys, I am going to read it's an article, but it's more than an article. It's like a book. And it is called Why We Protest Scientology. And the chapter that I'm reading from, it's Scientology Bluicides. And it's got several chapters. Very good information. I actually wanted to play the audio of L. Ron Hubbard showing how when you audit someone, you can purposely push them toward suicide. I don't know what's going to happen if I say this word, but I will most definitely put the link in the description box. Quote, I don't care if Elaine Wright commits suicide or not, but get her off my land before she does. L. Ron Hubbard. That pretty much sums up Scientology and many Scientologists' attitudes. In my opinion, this completely looks like the road to OT leads to suicide. John Peel. The interesting bit here being mention of a train, suicide, and defamation. Suicides and defamations always being hot topics around Scientology. Mr. Bartrick is the community relations officer, or whatever it is. Mail me if you have his correct title for Australia. Evidently, he started in Perth. Lots of diabolical stuff going on out there. The address book is part of the pile of stuff the squirrel found out the back of the Perth org several years ago. This OIF is 163K. You are encouraged to take a copy for safekeeping. And then they have the text in there if you want to click on it. I'm not going to do that. I went to the police department then, and in fact, I did fear for my life. I got scared, and I did get scared because it's a known fact that there are a lot of suicides connected with Scientology. I didn't want to be one of them. Robert Hartwell. Suicide attempts. Yeah, all of a sudden my eyes are acting weird. Hold on a minute here. Okay, that helped. A staff member from Italy started to dramatize psychosis heavily after being exposed to some OT materials in the SO1 unit. She was locked up and given some auditing by interns. Because, when you're psychotic, that's what you need. She attempted suicide several times and blew the flag and land base. When found to be raving by Clearwater policemen, they invoked the Baker Act and locked her up for several days. To look into what that is more. A few days after her release and her return in Italy, she jumped from the 3rd floor, doesn't say what building. She became permanently and totally handicapped as a result from this failed suicide attempt. Laurent Thurberge, who was a Class 4 auditor, attempted suicide 3 times after training to Class 4. It's from Pierre Ether. During the Scientology During the Scientology suit, a letter from a family has been read by the court's president near to the end of the suit. Paris, 1977. The guy had cut his wrists, wish we had a name, and had left a letter saying, "Go to Scientology, you'll understand everything." So I just want to interject my opinion here. All these police officers doing security and all that, I'm not giving any of them passes. There's no way that the people dealing with, as far as promoting Scientology, whether they're a politician or a police officer wanting to just make extra money, there's just no way that they have no idea what's going on. Okay, vulnerable people recruited. There is a suggestion that at least one Scientologist actively tries to recruit suicidal people. That wouldn't surprise me. Scientology's advertising clearly shows they work to recruit vulnerable people. I would imagine a lot of people in that state might be psychotic as well. Okay, Scientologists inducted to kill themselves. Wow. The Japanese samurai were totally unconnected with Scientology, but the tradition of seppuku, which poignantly shows how far human beings can be brainwashed to kill themselves. Yeah, we've seen that a lot. According to the Scientology's Critical Information Directory, in order to kill oneself is called EOC, end of cycle. Stephen Fishman. Fishman told the court that he had committed crimes on behalf of the church. He also attested that he was assigned to MURDER, his psychologist, Dr. U. Gertz. and then commit suicide. Apparently, exit counseling prevented Stephen Fishman carrying out the order. This is all over the place, guys, but it is categorized, and these are various statements from different people. So, unnamed victim of Jeff Walker. After Jeff read the errors in the folder, he threw open the 10th floor windows next to his desk, which had no screens, pointed outside, and commanded her to jump. She talked about the incident for years afterwards, claiming she barely had enough self-control to withstand his control. I don't know who they're talking about there. This from the Quentin Hubbard coroner's report, death certificate, and commentary also suggests that Scientologists are sometimes ordered to kill themselves. Spain. And the cult is in the dock in Spain too. 21 Scientologists, including the church's international president, Heber Jensch, have been indicted for crimes including tax evasion and inducement of suicide. And they have notes here. I haven't gone to look at those. So I'm just reporting here. Unconfirmed post. I know people who were labeled illegal PCs because of the past mental health care who fully believe that they should get a new body and start over again. They didn't get those ideas all on their own. This post on a discussion forum also suggests that people with mental health problems may be ordered to kill themselves. Okay. Hubbard actually suggests suicide. While most Scientology teachings do not promote suicide, at least one course does seem to suggest suicide in the Route to Infinity course, which consists of several taped lectures. Hubbard discusses something called Technique 88. In one lecture, he says, Technique 88 takes the body away. In another lecture in the same course, he says, and by the way, people who do run 88 have to furnish their own coffins. We won't furnish those here. You also have to leave a suicide note for the police. Wow. Aleister Crowley come to mind here, guys? While hundreds of Scientologists have done this course, and nearly all of them are still alive, the statement still troubles me. It's a pretty good little mini book here. And there's links to, there's also, well, they cite their material, and also there are a lot of really good links. Video of a Scientology stress test. And there's a link. A hidden camera Scientology stress test revealed a Scientologist asking a non-Scientologist who was given a stress test, what problems would death be a solution for? That is my question. A little later, the Scientologist said, "Start, change, stop. That's good control." Is that related to the high suicide rate among those connected with the cult? Did anything similar happen to Kaja Balo? There's another name to look into. Possible mass suicide. Marjorie Wakefield, former long-term Scientologist, fears a mass suicide may happen. Marjorie Wakefield has described herself as a typical Scientologist, though she was in Scientology for 10 years and was not typical of short-term Scientologists. I believe Scientology to be one of the most, if not the most, vicious of the 3,000 or so cults in the United States today. I believe that many Scientologists, if they should come to know that their mission on planet Earth is doomed to failure, would willingly commit suicide on command. There are rumors that one of the secret upper levels contains suicide training. If this is true, Jonestown would pale in comparison with the potential for disaster in Scientology. By contrast, another observer calling himself Shy David feels that most Scientologists leave relatively soon and are not under sufficient mind control to follow orders to take their own lives. Despite there being no classical earmarks of the likelihood of mass murder suicides, there does seem to be a set of requirements that cult followers adhere to before such incidents happen. Scientology holds most of these requirements, except for one, a major one. Followers are usually in the criminal cult for less than 2 years. There's a constant flow of financial swindles and victims of fraud among the 99% of the rubes that come in, empty their pockets, twig to the fraud, and then move on, poor but much wiser. Those who undergo upper-level training, which is rumored to include suicide training, have been in the cult sufficiently long so they might carry out orders to kill themselves. The rank and file may be less at risk of suicide, though whether they would be murdered is a different question. This reminds me of Delta programming, because 4 is a number for death. Delta is, D is the 4th letter. Delta programming is one of the blankety blank programs that teach people to be assassins, and then when the mission is over, they off themselves. Okay, the dead cannot tell us, nor can the police. We can no more than guess if any of those appearing on the list below were following Scientology orders. The dead cannot tell us. Below are known Scientology suicides in alphabetical order. Many Scientologists have simply disappeared without trace, and we can no more than guess their fates. I personally suspect there are a lot of buried bodies. That's what I suspect. A. Oscar. I don't know why they didn't include his whole name here. A. Oscar was a psychically unstable person. They set that one up. Who turned to Scientology looking for help, vulnerable. Verified that the therapy was totally unuseful. He decided to leave, but was victim of telephone persecution in order to make him change his mind. They don't let people leave. Psychological threats, etc. And he finally hanged himself on 21st of September 1987, after his psychological and physical conditions had worsened very much. I do wonder how many are kind of like pushed into it to shut them up. RPF too. Alan Albert committed suicide when his wife of many years, Jerry, left him because he left the church. It's that disassociation stuff. So rest in peace to Albert Allen and A. Oscar, whatever his first name was. Goran Anderson. Sounds very... Oh, here it is. It's Swedish. Goran had been on staff in Sweden for many years. Later, he joined the Sea Org in Copenhagen. I think he hanged himself about 5 years ago. That was in 1995-96. Rest in peace to Goran Anderson. Jorge Arroyo. Jorge Arroyo had a crush on the RTC rep at the ship, Lori Bellotti. When Bellotti found out, she nixed that, and pursuant to her training in DM reverse Scientology policy, had him sent to ethics to be handled rough and tough. Jorge took a sheet and hung himself to death at the Free Ones. Did you guys hear that? At the Free Ones? The almighty, powerful, so beautiful and pristine, godlike Free Ones. He hung himself on the Free Ones. Really nice girl that Bellotti was. Rest in peace to Jorge Arroyo. Daniel Austin. December 1st, 2015, a Scientologist, Daniel Austin, was found dead at the coast of Clearwater, Florida, was found dead off the coast of Clearwater, Florida, found dead off the coast of Clearwater, Florida. His death was an apparent suicide. Clearwater Police Department identified the man as Daniel James Austin, 60. Austin was reported missing by a family member on Monday after he did not show up for work. Oh, wait a minute, I thought it was a church. Isn't it a church? His belongings were later discovered at Clearwater Beach. He was 1 week away from his scheduled trial in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, here we go. For child pornography charges against him. You don't say. Daniel was a former staff member of the Atlanta Church of Scientology. Oh, and get this, he was a 30-year member of the church. So not like nobody knew what he was doing, right? And by the way, the cover story is always child pornography. I'm just saying. So I'm not going to give him any kudos. Okay. So we know this gentleman, his first name is Massimo. Massimo. And the last name starts with a B, but we're not sure exactly what it was. Massimo B, mentally ill, chronicized psychotic syndrome of schizophrenic type, turned to Scientology looking for help, vulnerable. You just prey on vulnerable people. He had already been hospitalized, but unidentified Church of Scientology staffers assured him, like at the recruiting center, assured him that thanks to a therapy called purification, he would 100% improve, which doesn't work. He instead worsened very much and ran away the very first day, but was convinced to go back to Sana. He ran away again and tried to commit suicide, cutting his veins. So I guess they're not saying that I guess he made it. I'm not seeing that he died, so terrible. I'm unsure on that. It sounds like he survived. David Baker. David Baker reached OT3. I'm going to repeat that. David Baker reached OT3. That's when everybody finds out that Xenu, who was a galactic ruler, diabolical galactic ruler, took all these humans, dropped them, he dropped all of them in a volcano, which then they blew up the volcano, because being dumped in a volcano doesn't kill you enough. And then body thetans rose up from the volcano, and I believe these body thetans landed on Earth. And that's what the body thetans are on all these Scientologists. So again, David Baker. David Baker reached OT3, East Grinstead, England. Suicide, 1984. Rest in peace to David Baker. Kaja Balto. Kaja Balto was a foreign language student at Nice University who totally lost confidence in herself after a devastating report on her personality based in the Scientology test. Oh my gosh. She jumped from a high window, killing herself a few hours later. So there we go again. They were targeting the students. It's what they do. This poor young lady. So they probably roped her in with this personality crap, told her what a loser she was, and she felt really bad about herself and took herself out. Rest in peace to Kaja Balto. Mary Florence Barnett, surname also Miller. Mary Flo, the mother-in-law of current Church of Scientology leader David Miscavige, was found dead. Oh, I heard of this one. This is a real weird one. She was found dead with 3 rifle wounds to her torso and 1 rifle wound to her head. She was 5'3" tall. So, yeah, there's a lot going on with that one. That was Shelley Miscavige's mother. And I don't, and being that high in the ranks, probably people were afraid she was going to talk, but she must have been higher OT. And the police included, are trying to tell people that she took a rifle, which it just sounds weird. Shot herself 3 times in the torso. And she wasn't dead yet, you guys. So then she decided to give one to the head. Another cover-up. So rest in peace to Mary Florence Barnett, also known as Miller. I might make 2 or 3 videos on this because there's just so much here. Gregory Sherwood Bashaw. Greg Bashaw, I think it says 46. He was 46 years old. OT4. Committed suicide June 23rd, 2001. Pulled onto the shoulder of a road in Montcalm County, northeast of Grand Rapids. Listen to these carefully, because, I don't always take the bait. Northeast of Grand Rapids, using duct tape, he attached a hose to the exhaust pipe of his Honda, then ran it through the passenger window, sealing off the opening with a towel. He reclined in the passenger seat, folded his arms across his chest, and breathed in a lethal dose of carbon monoxide. He left a note for his dad, wife, and son. So he found out what it was when he got to OT4. The fact that it did not pay off has been an exceptionally bitter pill to swallow. The fact that the end of the road I ended up in, worse shape than I'd ever been in my entire life, well, that has been completely unreconcilable with any concept of reality. That's unfortunate. That sounds legit to me. That sounds legit. That's sad. He found out it was all a bunch of crap. Eva Biddingmeyer. Eva Biddingmeyer, 28, was found in a bath, electrocuted with a hairdryer and a heater under her body on February 24th, 2001, as a Scientologist in Stuttgart. She had, 6 days before her suicide, a Scientology life counseling talk. That's so sad. I mean, you just never know. Like, there's so much sex abuse and RAPE. Maybe that happened to her. And, I mean, 28, you know how you are when you're 28. But listen, I got to look back at this. She was found in a bath, electrocuted with a hairdryer and a heater under her body. I'm not an expert on that stuff. And I imagine people in these desperate situations just try to think of ways to do it, but I think that would be a really, really, really sucky way to go. Rest in peace to Eva Biddingmeyer. Jeremy Blake, 35, committed suicide by drowning in the sea off New Jersey on 17 July 2007. He went to join the lovely Teresa. They both believe they were being harassed by Scientology. A possible reason is their friendship with Beck and his wife, which Beck has denied. But opinion remains sharply divided about the role of Scientology in this affair. I don't know much about this one. Rest in peace to Jeremy Blake. Dale Susan Bogan. Dale Susan Bogan died of strychnine poisoning. I don't know what that's from. Poisoning in November 1984. Her death was so dreadful that the manipulators told her friend, handlers, she had died of CO poisoning in her car. After blocking the exhaust with a rag, in fact, she swallowed gopher poison. And if you block a car exhaust with anything, the engine immediately stalls. In 1984, she had done the introspection rundown, isolation and vitamins, Hubbard's Cure for Psychosis, and again. Lots of changing of the story with this one. Rest in peace, Dale Susan Bogan. Bob Borowski. Bob Borowski was a staff member at a New York org, a supervisor and auditor. He did all of the bridge in New York through Dianetics case completion. He was a very calm, at the moment, caring person. He finished his staff contract and went out to LA and went from clear through OT7. When he returned to upstate New York, where his wife was waiting for him, he loaded a shotgun and stuck it in his mouth and blew his head off. Oh, that's horrible. Rest in peace to Bob Borowski. OT7. See, this is when they people really start finding out it's all a bunch of lies and they've been taken. Not to mention how much money they put into it. John H. Boucher. John had been told, after 25 years in Scientology, that he was an illegal PC because he was a security risk. So I think that they meant they kick him out sometimes. He committed suicide on Sunday, May 6, 2001, believing that he would come back in another body and be able to get auditing. He wanted Scientology so much, he wanted it more than he wanted life. Yeah, that sounds real kind of iffy there. Rest in peace to John H. Boucher. There's so many names on here, you guys. I think I'm just going to finish up the B's, unless there's a lot of them. Christy Brauch. Christy Brauch, 26, on June 6, 2018, was found dead of a gunshot wound to the chest just a few days after she and her boyfriend arrived at a rental house in the town of Dunedin, near Clearwater, again, where her boyfriend was reportedly planning on going from clear to OT3. Christy, who herself had reached the level of clear in 2015, had since had bouts of depression. It's because they found out what the lie was. A lack of working, financial issues, because they suck everything from you, and had attempted suicide the year before, according to her suicide note. The Pinellas County Medical Examiner's report determined that she committed suicide. Yeah, they've been known to change these medical examiner's reports numerous times. They threaten and intimidate the medical examiners. Not to dispute that sometimes this happens. I'm sure it does. Rest in peace to Christy Brauch. Steve Brackett. Steve Brackett, ex-husband of Nancy Cartwright, leaped to his death from the highway. 1 Bixby Bridge on the Big Sur Coast, May 28, 2009. Brackett had run into trouble on various Constitution projects and recently lost several arbitration settlements, one of which cost him $300,000. He was scheduled to go to Flag, Scientology's top church, soon as a plane ticket had been purchased. He died from injuries suffered after the nearly 200-foot fall from the bridge. So it sounds to me like they were just sucking him dry, and he had no hope left. So rest in peace to Steve Brackett. Notice there's no children's names here. Kyle Brennan. Kyle Brennan was suffering from clinical depression, vulnerable, and his Scientologist father removed his medication, which was Lexapro. With his depression not properly treated, Kyle Brennan shot himself. That also causes people to go into psychosis, which is not here. The website for Lexapro warns users not to go off their medication suddenly, even if they are feeling better. You hear that, Scientology? Ring-a-ding-a-ding. Changes in dosage, it says, can cause patients on antidepressants to worsen their depression, show signs of mood changes, and exhibit thoughts of suicide. I believe this also had to do with, what's that other group? I can't think of it right now. That group that's affiliated with them that supposedly helps people with drug and alcohol addiction. I can't think of it right now. Kyle was found unconscious and there was a delay of over 40 minutes before an ambulance was called. Tell me that's not suspicious. Pensacola police. Rest in peace, Kyle Brennan. Leila Layton Brown, San Francisco suicide, 1978. Wish we knew how young she was. Rest in peace to Leila Layton Brown. I happen to believe that a lot of the female ones have to do with sexual assaults and maybe potentially child sexual abuse. John Buchanan. John Buchanan, after 3 years in Scientology, accrued huge debts. Isn't that like the go-to? Everybody goes into debt? Accrued huge debts to several Munich banks to buy Scientology's courses and materials, and committed suicide in May 1994 to escape his debts. That's a shame. He was probably really pretty young, too. Rest in peace to John Buchanan. Brad Bufanda. Brad Bufanda, 34, a.k.a. Fred Joseph Bufanda. Brad Joseph jumped to his death at midnight, November 1st, 2017. This is not that long ago. From the roof of a 13-story apartment building. Notice they don't say which one. One of the 18 towers that make up the iconic park, La Brea housing complex. Wonder if that's the one that Jamie Mustard talks about. Like, he lived in an area in LA that was very sketchy. Park La Brea housing complex on the west side of Los Angeles. Hear that, LAPD? Just 4 days after claiming to a friend that Scientology cured me of everything and took me to new heights as an athlete. Regardless of what happens, I owe them my life. See, that's what they do. That's that mind control. You never owe anything to anybody. I'd be dead or in jail without them. Brad often talked about reincarnation, and specifically that he believed his next life would be better than this one. Brad had been spewing this stuff for years. Interesting that they would say that. That sounds funny to me. That he was going to drop his body and come back, and that he'd have more success in the next life. Okay, you guys, there's so much here. I'm going to definitely continue with this, and I will leave the link in the description box. Have a good day. Sorry, so morbid. Peace, and at least we can give some of these Scientologists the respect that they deserved in their death. Later.